Go in and out.
All right, so we have a short presentation that we'd like to make. Since this is a little brunch that Wendy has organized and Michael has organized, and I'm part of it now too, in honor of Jerry's 90th birthday.
Yeah, Papa!
So I wanted to give a little bit of history for those of you that don't know Jerry's history, and then we also have a little bit of auditory history to play for you. That's why Michael is standing by here. He's the technical end of it. Part one of two parts, right? So first of all, Jerry's parents, Jerry's my dad, of course. His parents, Anna and Louis, were impoverished Russian Jews who came over to this country around the turn of the last century with the giant wave of immigration from Eastern Europe and the Italians that came over, and many other ethnic groups and so on. And just as a little aside here, I'll tell you a little personal story. All four of my grandparents were Russian Jews who came over, and they three of the four of them came over when they were adults, and as a result they had very, very thick Yiddish accents. So they spoke like that, like the stereotypical Jew would talk. But my father's mother, Anna, she came over, she was about 10 years younger than the other three grandparents, and she came over when she was a little girl. She came over when she was about 7 or 8 years old, and so she learned English as a younger person and therefore grew up without accented English, and she spoke English like a native. And she was bilingual, though. They all spoke Russian and they spoke Yiddish. Yiddish was their first language. And when I was growing up, I would see the older grandparents who looked older than Anna speaking mostly in Yiddish, and then when they'd speak in English, they had these accents. And then I'd see Anna kind of in both worlds. And my parents were also bilingual. They were native, born here, but spoke Yiddish very well. And I had when I was a very young boy, I had one of these childhood misconceptions. I used to think that the older you got, the more you developed the Yiddish accent. So I assumed that when Anna got to look like the other three grandparents, she would talk like that too. And I assumed that when I got to be an old man, I would talk like that too. And I grew up thinking, I thought that for quite a number of years actually. The part of the mission today that I think is kind of interesting is kind of the other half that goes with the photographs. Many families have photographs, but we are very fortunate in that we have something that not too many families do have. Anna and Louis were both musicians, and they also had a music store in Brooklyn for 900 years. And before they were tape recorders, people used to be able to go into certain music stores or at a carnival or a county fair, and for like 50 cents or something, you could have a homemade record made. You could record your own record. And they were either made on cardboard or on metal and so on. And they had one of those machines in the music store that they bought around 1940. And I have a box of family records that were made pretty soon after they bought the machine that I've had in my possession since I'm a kid. And I dug them out for this occasion. And I took 2 of them and put them on the computer and cleaned them up and edited them down. And so even though this man is 90 years old, we're about to listen to a recording of his 19th birthday party. And it was the recording on both sides of the record. It was about maybe 8 or 9 minutes long. I edited it down to about 3 minutes. And so let me give you a little bit of background on it. What's interesting about this record and the second record I'm going to play is that they sound very formal at first, the way they're announced and so on. Someone comes on and says, "Today is such and such, and today is very," and it's very much like a radio broadcast. But that's the point. Radio was the dominant medium of the time, and radio was much more formal than television is. It was almost prissy, in fact. It was a very formalized kind of thing. And these guys had heard thousands of hours of radio, and you'll hear the way they sound on the record, at least at the announcement at the beginning, sounds very much like that. Let me tell you a little bit about who you're going to be listening to. You'll hear the voice of his mother. She'll say, "All right, Jerome, blow out the candles," and you'll hear unaccented English. That's Anna, who was a very sunny, cheery, bright person, kind of a person. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. Who had a very sunny, cheery personality. We knew her very well, Wendy and I, and she was a music teacher. She was our music teacher, as a matter of fact. She was an excellent one. And then a little later in the record, you'll hear Jerry's father talking, Louis, and Louis has a very thick accent. You hear him say, "I want to wish him a happy birthday." Foreigners, people for whom English is not a native language, can never say the TH. TH is the one that kills everybody. So they'll say dat instead of that, or the French will say zat, the German, And so Louis says boyde. But let me tell you about his buddies who are on here, okay? As you heard B saying earlier, if you were listening to him, his name is Jerome, but only his parents called him Jerome. His buddies called him Jojo or Joe, and then after he got married to my mother, he became Jerry. But on these recordings, he's Joe or Jojo. And his buddies also had great names. He had on those recordings you'll hear Jake the Bull, and Irving Katz, who was known as Pussycats. And I think it might have had a different connotation back then. And then there was Huck and Doc and Pinky, and as I wrote, they're not dwarfs. It does sound a little bit like it, doesn't it? And what you need to know about these guys, they grew up in Brownsville, which was a tough section of Brooklyn, a really tough section of Brooklyn. They kind of belie the stereotype of the professional Jews whose parents were doctors and lawyers and that sort of thing. These were really blue-collar, tough guys who grew up in Brownsville. My mother once told me that this is before they had the term you're going to hear, you'll recognize it as a brand of pen, but it was before these existed. These guys were called Brownsville Sharpies. That was what they were called, Brownsville Sharpies. And Pinky used to tell me that the neighborhood was so tough that they used to steal hubcaps off of moving cars. and Huck once took me aside, and Huck was dead serious about this. This tells you how hard the bar was, how low or high the bar was. Huck took me aside when I was in my early 20s, and he said, all of us turned out really, really well. And with great pride, he said, none of us ended up in prison. And he was absolutely serious.
I always said that. I could not believe it.
And she knew them then.
There were more lushes at my wedding.
So you're going to hear this recording of these, working class Brownsville Sharpies. And what's interesting, though, is that they're also Jews, and so they're going to sing at the end of they sing a couple songs together. They sing Happy Birthday, of course, but then they sing, at the end of the recording, they sing Chittabin, Chittabum, Chittabim, Bum, Bim, Bum, Bim, which is an old Yiddish thing. So it's kind of funny mixing the two, these gangsters, with the Yiddish stuff. Now, just in terms of overall historical perspective, this recording was made at his 19th birthday. It was 7 weeks before Pearl Harbor. So this is right before the United States entered the war. And so it's kind of like a last glimpse of peacetime United States before the entry of the war. Now these recordings, of course, are very old. They were never meant to be played 1,000 times the way commercial recordings were meant to be played. The grooves are much more delicate, and they were played a lot. The grooves are rough. I put them on the computer. I cleaned them up a little bit with an app called Audacity. But I didn't want to take all the scratches out because that's part of the patina is the scratches. I just got some of the scratches, but I did do quite a bit of editing. So it runs about 3 minutes or so. And so, Mr. Technical Guy.
And this is what? What are we playing?
Jerry's
here?
birthday. Jerry's 19th birthday.
Okay.
This is the 15th of October, 1941. Jerome Goff is now 19 years old. He celebrates his birthday at home with his family and friends.
All right, Jerome, now blow the candles.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jojo. Happy birthday to you.
Ist das nicht der guten Tisch?
Ja, das ist der guten Tisch.
Ist das nicht der langen Fisch?
Ja.
Guten Tisch.
Lange Tisch.
This is Jerome's father speaking. I'm speaking to my son Jerome. I wish you a happy birthday and many happy returns for the day. Now I introduce my dear wife, Anna.
All right, Jerome, I wish that Daddy and I will live to celebrate your wedding. Mit a Gesinnt and Glick and Mantel.
Lots of luck from Lou.
This is a good pal from Pinky.
Best wishes, Pussy.
Hardest congratulations from Joy. Best wishes, Doc. Best wishes. Happy birthday, Roger. Happy birthday, Arthur.
And this there is Jojo, Jerome himself. I want to thank all my friends. I'm very happy that they all came to my party. And every year, I never missed a year yet. My mother always baked me a cake since I was 1 year old. This is my 19th cake, and I'm glad to have all my friends. And
We should celebrate many more years to come after this. Thank you. To the bim, to the bum, to the bim, to the bum, to the bim, bum, bim, bum, bim, bum, to the bim, to the bum, to the bim, to the bum, to the bim, bum, bim, bum, bim, bum. I do, 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 I do. Well, this is Jerome signing off, and we had a very nice time today, and there isn't much space left on the record, so that's about all we have to say. Good night and goodbye, everybody. See you all later.
I like how he says good night, everybody. See you all later. He was even a little more Brooklyn then than he is now. He's in Brooklyn, the plural of you is yous, you know? So see you all later. Now, I have one more for you. This one, Jerry was always a natural historian. If you saw the pictures, all the captions on the pictures were things he wrote at the time. And he saved all kinds of interesting souvenirs from the war. He saved the usual kind of souvenirs like his ribbons and so on. But he also has, for example, a Japanese hand grenade that's been taken apart. And he has a Japanese helmet with a bullet hole through it, so you can imagine where that came from. But he even saved things like he's got a can of his K-rations. And now, I can't imagine that too many guys would have thought to save something like that. But he knew, he just instinctively knew that someday that would be very interesting to people. And God knows he was right. God knows he was right. And he also decided to leave a record for his parents when he left for the war. So I have a recording I'm about to play for you now, the night before he left for the Marines. And so I want to talk to you about that. It's the same format. It's a very formal introduction, although he is introducing it himself. But it's interesting. He talks about himself in the third person. He says, this is Jerome Goff's last night before, but it's him. The guys who were in the room with him all had already enlisted by this point, but he was the first one to leave. But every one of them knew they were about to enter this war. So let me tell you where we were at this point. You know, for all of us sitting in this room, except for B and my father, it is 70 years after this record was made, almost to the day. Today is August 20th, 2012. This was made August 17th, 1942. Almost exactly 70 years ago. 70 years and 3 days ago it was made. And you know, we know that we won the war. Okay? At the time, the war was only a few months old. This was just a few months after Pearl Harbor, and this country was taking a terrible beating at this point, and we did not know how this was going to turn out. And so what you're going to listen to is a room full of 19-year-old boys who were about to enter the biggest bloodbath in history and had no idea what was going to happen. And we can't even imagine what was on their mind, but I'll give you a clue. At one point, they sing For He's a Jolly Good Fellow. Now, usually when you sing For He's a Jolly Good Fellow, you sing it at a very fast clip. You know, you hear it like, For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a... Well, they sing it, For he's a jolly... They sing it like a dirge. And I don't think you have to be Freud to realize that these were a bunch of very apprehensive young hoodlums about to enter the service. And it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. But then the mood changes. And they start to do like pretend news broadcasts. So you hear one guy say, Gott in Himmel, we Germans will lose now that Joe is in the Marines, and then, you know, things like that. And another guy says, you know, the Premier of Japan has committed suicide because Joe Goff joined the Marines, and all that sort of stuff. And then there's one other thing I have to talk to you about, which is a little bit of lack of political correctness, okay? Jake the Bull. You hear Jerry say to Jake, hey Jake, sing us a song, just a short song. And Jake starts to sing a song that was a very popular song right after Pearl Harbor. And in fact, I have a commercial recording of it. And it's right on YouTube, you can find it. And it's not very politically correct. The name of the song is, We're Gonna Have to Slap the Dirty Little Jap, and Uncle Sam's the Guy Who Could Do It. And Jake only sings the first few lines of it, and he actually changes the words a little at the end. He inserts the word shit. He says, will we get through the shit, will we get through it? Okay, which is not in a commercial recording, but it was a very popular song. But you have to keep this in mind. Context is everything. You know, we had just been attacked, scores of our young guys had been killed, and at the beginning of these other battles, we were getting pummeled by these people who were just murdering our boys. And so we were very, very angry as a society. And this song, as songs often do, reflect the mood of the day. And so I think we don't have to necessarily endorse the song, but I certainly think we can understand Jake the Bull. Okay? Yeah. So the recording is in very rough shape. So a couple of things. First of all, I've made some copies for the grandchildren, and I actually made fancy smashy covers. So this is going to be for the Long Island contingent, and this is for the San Francisco contingent. Okay? And I also have copies of the birthday one for both of you. But since it's hard to understand...
Massachusetts contingent.
I have for you. I'm talking grandchildren first. I have for you. I made. Now, since it's hard to understand some of the words, I cleaned it up as much as I could. This is a little, this is pretty much what I just got finished saying. But on the second page, I actually transcribed it. And if you follow along with the recording right now, I think you'll get much more out of it because you'll really be able to see exactly what everybody's saying. And so, here are some copies. So it's kind of like a Passover Seder about, you know, a different subject, right?
How'd you get the accuracy? That's just
I played it back thousands of times with headphones, and I think I got it right. You can tell me if I made any mistakes. So turn to the second page, and we'll get started. I take all this recorded stuff for granted because we now can do so much even just on our phone. But just think about the fact that, you know, you press it, it's like the Twilight Zone. You know? It's amazing, absolutely amazing.
This is August the 17th, 1942. The night before Jerome Goff is leaving for the Marine Corps. He's supposed to leave tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. A few of his friends are over the house now. We're going to try to have a good time and make a record. Now, I'll give you, my pal Pussy now is going to say a few words. I'll tell you what it's all about. Ladies and gentlemen, George and Bull, we're gathered here tonight to see our good friend Joe leave for the Marines. I know it's priceless to all to see him go because we had 12 times together. And I know maybe we had our ups and downs, but at a time like this we forget everything that we didn't like, and we only think of the good things. Okay, I'd like to bring George up. He'd like to say
This is Georgie now.
Well, I'm really speechless now that Pussy said the same thing I was going to say, but anyways, we really hate to see Joe go, and we wish him all the luck in the world and hope to see him back very soon. Thank you.
This is Jake the Bull. Well, I wish Joe the best of luck, and I hope he comes back pretty soon. This is Jake the Bull speaking.
This is Louis Parrott.
Well, I'm one guy with very few words, and all I gotta say is I know him a very long time. He's one slug guy, and lots of luck, Joe.
Wow, this is Pussy's boyfriend, Judy.
Pussy's girlfriend, Judy. Pussy fell down on the floor.
I agree with all the boys, Joe. Best of luck to you. That's all I can say. Goodbye.
So I'm thanking everybody for what they all said. I guess they all mean it, and I hope we'll all be back and we'll all be over soon.
Wait a second, fellas. What do you say for old time's sake we get together and have a little talk? All right.
For he's a jolly good fellow. For he's a jolly good fellow. For he's a jolly good fellow.
Joe's joining the Marines, determined to lose. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lord Archibald Twiddle Snyder from His Majesty's service. I've just heard from diplomatic circles that Jerome Goff of the United States is going to join the Marines. We're sure to conquer them now.
Hey, Jake is going to sing a little song. What do you want to sing? Just a little.
Gonna have to slap the dirty little jab. And Uncle Sam's the guy who can do it. We'll skin the streak of yellow from this sneaky little shallow. While we get through the shit when we get through it.
That was Jake the Bull again. Now we interrupt this program. The Premier of Japan has just committed suicide after he learned Joe Goff has joined the Marines. Well, the record's getting kind of short. It's almost over. So this is Jerome saying goodbye for all his friends and himself. We're now cutting out.
So, I just have a couple of other things to say, although I see the truck just pulled up. Perfect timing.
To take the tent.
Yeah. So we'll have to. Oh, well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about post-war. I guess most of you know Jerry was injured and ended up in a VA hospital paralyzed in a body cast from here down to here for more years than he cares to remember, I'm sure. And I remember talking to him when I was a kid about how he got through that, because I wondered, how do you get through something like that? And he told me that there was a guy in the bed next to him who had almost the same type of injuries and was in the same kind of body cast. And when they put him in the body cast, he was so claustrophobic that he had a major meltdown, and he went really out of his mind and started to scream, "You got to get me out of this, I can't stand it, take this off of me, take this off of me." And they said, "If we do that, we will never be able to help you." And he said, "I don't care, get me out of this." And he did, they did. And the way Jerry coped with it is the way Jerry copes with everything. I've seen pictures of him in his body cast, and he had cartoons painted all over the cast. There was another veteran in there who was a cartoonist, and he had the guy paint cartoon characters from the Sunday comics all over his cast. And above his bed, in the picture, you know how they have these little boxes that say, in case of emergency, break glass, and there's a fire extinguisher? He built a little box that says, in case of emergency, break glass, and there's a toilet seat in it. And he also had another sign above his bed. There used to be a dishwashing, there was a detergent called Duz, D-U-Z. And it was good for everything. You could do your dishes in it, you could do your laundry in it, you could wash your hands in it. And so the slogan was, Duz does everything. And he had a sign above his bed that said, Duz does everything, but what the hell can I do? And so that's how he didn't melt down. That's how he got through it, you know. And that's pretty much how he lived his life. And what he told me also was that when he was released from the hospital after multiple spinal surgeries and vertebrae fusions, the doctor said to him, you're going to be in severe pain for the rest of your life. There's no question about that. And if you want to live your life as an invalid, you will be perfectly justified in doing so. And in fact, most people in your condition will live their lives as invalids. But you don't have to. It's totally up to you. And as we all know, he took the exact opposite path, and he led the most active life of any human being I've ever met. He was involved with every child who ever came near him. When we grew up as kids, well, my cousin Bill Rosner was here yesterday. And Bill said to me, you know, he was everybody's father. He took all the kids to the beach. He took all the kids to Coney Island. He took all the kids on picnics. He was the guy who did everything with the kids. He became a fireman, and he was climbing ladders, you know. He was an ice skater. He went sledding with us. He was the handyman for the whole neighborhood. He fixed everything in the goddamn neighborhood. He taught half the neighborhood how to drive. And so he lived the most active life imaginable. And his sense of humor has never left him. I mean, those of you who've ever been to his house know that for about now 4 or 5 decades, he's had a quarter nailed to the floor. And I've never found that very funny, but people find it. He thinks it's funny when he sees who bends down to pick up the damn quarter. I've never found it that amusing, but he loves it, you know. That's just the kind of guy he is. He was a handyman after he retired, and he moved to Florida at 65. Became a handyman. He worked as a handyman until he was about 87 or 88 years old. They finally had to put him on a walker. And he actually tried doing handyman work on his walker. And eventually he said to me, I have to hang up my tools now. And I thought he was going to be very, very upset when he said he was going to hang up his tools, because he always said that's what's keeping him going. So I was really dreading that phone call, and I called him, and he said, yeah, I had to finally hang up my tools. He said, but you know, the walker that they gave me has this really great fold-down seat. It's really well designed. And that was what the conversation was about, is how great the walker was. You know, he had to give up his beloved cigars at around the same time. And if you know Jerry, you know how much he loved his cigars. And I also was dreading that phone call. And you know what he said to me? You know, I just bought about $100 worth of cigars, and I was able to bring it back, and the guy gave me full credit. Isn't that terrific? This is how he's lived his life. This is how he's lived his life. And so, listen, we all know the other sides of the coins that we don't have to talk about today. But as Pussycat said, we remember the good times in a situation like this. So let's pretend we've got wine glasses, and I'm going to propose a toast. And let's wake him up too, B. I'm going to propose a toast to a man who led an unbelievably active life, who inspired many with his way of looking at life's challenges. And so to Jerry for his inspiration and perspiration.
Now before we end though, there's a second part to this celebration. We're going to have to clear everything out so that they can take the tent. But at about 3 o'clock, we're all going to the town where I work, and we're going to an Iwo Jima memorial. And the Marine Corps League is going to meet us there to meet you and to show you the memorial. And we're going to have some birthday cake then, and that will be the second part of our celebration in honor of your birthday.
You said too much.
Now, I just...
Right?
Yeah, green beans, right there. First wave. 7-5.
Another one.
Yeah, he was with the 5th Division also. 4th Division. Yeah. Oh, we're still around.
That's right. God bless Harry Truman, right?
Whereabouts in Florida are you living now?
We live in Delray Beach.
Okay.
Come visit us.
Why, I have a question. That's nice. If you might have known Pearl,
Irvin Perlman? Yeah.
if he was East Coast.
Right.
Marine Corps.
He was a chaplain, wasn't he? If I'm mistaken, Irvin was the chaplain. Right.
Let me ask you guys a question. What do you call that hat you're wearing?
A piss cutter.
I didn't forget. You didn't want to believe me. It was drilled into him. I spent all the time in the Marine Corps. We only called it a piss cutter.
That's right. I called one of the guys today and told him what we were wearing. I says, and don't forget your piss cutter. And I talked to his wife, and his wife said, what? I said, a piss cutter. And she started laughing.
Can anyone explain where that name came from?
So what?
Nobody knows.
I don't know where it came from, but that's all we ever called him when we were in there.
What did it was called a piss cutter.
Yeah.
That's right.
With the hat.
What else?
You got to remember, it was a bunch of Marines talking to a bunch of other
your
Marines.
background?
There were no women around at the time, so when we were saying those things, it wasn't derogatory. It was just the way it was.
Right.
Now it's a little. You got to be politically correct. There's a carryover. You just have to do it that way.
Right. Joe Pinter, by any chance?
Because you say it that way, then everybody knows what you're talking about.
Right.
Right away.
I
No
grew
doubt
up
in
with
anybody's
him.
mind.
He was killed on the
What took a beating?
I was on with a bomb disposal.
Tinian?
Yeah.
I got a certificate for you, Jerry. We're making you an honorary member of the Marine Corps League here. This is an honorary membership for the Van Guysen Detachment of the Marine Corps League here.
Can you take the pictures?
Yeah, very nice. Thank you.
You're welcome, and here's
Yeah, B.
Yes.
challenge coin from the Toys for Tots. Our detachment does the Toys for Tots, so that's our coin.
The other side, Papa. Look at the reverse side.
Turn it over. Toys for Tots.
So I want to thank everybody for coming, and I'm going to ask, I'm Wendy, I'm Jerry's daughter, and I was going to ask my brother Larry in from LA. He's going to say a couple of words about my father in the Marines, and then we can have cake.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you guys for coming today. It was really a wonderful thing that you guys showed up for Jerry's 90th birthday, and he joined up in August of 42 when he was 19 years old, and he was in the 4th Marine Division. So he was on Saipan and Tinian and Iwo Jima. What was the 4th one? I missed it.
Saipan, Tinian, Iwo Jima.
No, there's one more.
Occupation, too?
No,
Japan?
No, he's not.
Okinawa?
And after the war, he
think of it.
developed some very serious spinal injuries, and he was in a VA hospital in a body cast for about 2 or 3 years, and he had a number of spinal surgeries. And he finally got back on his feet and lived the most active life a human being could possibly live. He was a volunteer fireman for many years because he couldn't do his handyman work along with his walker, so he finally gave that up. But he's still very active in many ways, and we want to thank all of you guys for coming. We blew up some photographs from his World War II album, so I'm sure that'll be something that will be meaningful to all of you vets. And we want to thank you so much. We want to thank you so much for coming and for your service.
We want to thank him.
Guys.
Why don't we get a picture of Papa with everyone?
Yep.
Okay. Will Richmond. No problem.
Yeah.
8x10s in a wallet size.
Steve, you want to get
All right, gentlemen, everyone look at this way again, please.
Semper Fi, guys.
Hold on a second. Everybody got their photos?
Yeah.
Wait.
What about these other veterans?
Plus the flag's moving the wrong way.
Okay, so we have some other veterans.
We'll be able to move for a week now. Just take off the prosthetic, that's all. Gentlemen, this way again, smiles.
Beautiful.
Did we get your pictures?
beautiful.
I think we're set.
Can we ask you to stay one more minute, and can we come join you, the family? Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sherry. Happy birthday to you. Blow it out, everyone.
Yeah.
You want to take a picture with him and the cake?
Yeah. That cake is beautiful.
Wait, if you pull it down.
Who did that?
The bakery. I emailed
Maya,
them a
Papa, look up. Maya. Sorry, I'm Karen.
Julie, can I have a picture of that? You have my camera?
Papa, one more smile.
We'll send you them, B2,
cake.
whatever anybody takes. Okay, folks, this cake.
Come on, Carol Ann. You're a grandchild. Get in.
Don't move, okay?
Donated all the lights to us. Building materials donated anyway.
Is it? Yes, sir. Got something else for you.
Got another challenge going.
Thank you all.
This is from the Leathernecks.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
But safely.
Right, yeah, you got a great expression. Nice, that was a great expression.
Excellent. Okay.